Your menstrual cycle is a window into your health. You're not supposed to feel all those things at such extremes, but we're not taught that. And then, side to that, going to sleep, waking up and being exhausted all day, not being hungry is a
Oh.
sign that if something is off. Don't be hungry. We should want to eat food. And just feeling untethered and not like
Mhm,
yours. Those are all
mhm.
signs that something is off in your body.
And so you did this research largely because you were struggling with your own issues or because you heard a lot of your one-on-one clients were also struggling? Is that kind of what
Yeah.
got you into this? Welcome back to Green Living Now. I'm Amy. This show covers non toxic, eco friendly, and holistic living from every angle: the food on your plate, what's in your home, sustainable farming, and the people that have healed themselves from life threatening illnesses when conventional medicine ran out of answers. Before we dive in, grab my free guide, 10 words on your food labels that are lying to you. It takes about 5 minutes to read, and it will change the way you shop forever. Today, I'm talking with Tierra Duncan, author, women's health educator, and someone who spent years in the fitness and nutrition coaching industry, watching her clients do everything right and still feel terrible, exhausted, bloated, moody, periods that hurt, and nobody was connecting the dots. What we get into today goes way beyond birth control. We talk about how estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone affect your bones, your brain, your heart, your mood, your whole body. We talk about what your menstrual cycle can tell you about your overall health, what happens when synthetic hormones suppress the signal, and what Tierra did to recover after 2 years of her own hormone chaos following an IUD removal. But honestly, if you have hormones, this one's for you too. Let's dive in. We've talked on this podcast about hormones and women over 50, but not much about women under 50. And I know that your topic is around women primarily under 50. I know you talk a lot about birth control. I never went on the pill when I was younger. I only used diaphragm condoms, but tell me how you got into this.
Yeah. So it's not a subject that I ever thought I was going to fall into. I started doing fitness coaching back in 2015, and that evolved into nutrition certifications and programming certifications. And that turned into one on one work with men and women. And I realized throughout that journey that I was running into the same issue, that my clients were doing everything quote unquote right, but still having persistent fatigue, having painful periods, having X, Y, and Z. And then my own journey with birth control, but also pregnancy, postpartum, just the
Mm.
changes that happen as a woman really motivated me to educate myself. I really took a step back and was like, oh my goodness, I don't really understand what cycle health even means. There are
Mm.
4 phases of a cycle. I always thought your period was just bleeding. And where does hormonal birth control fit into that? It's something that I went on at 17 to help with painful periods, endometriosis,
Oh,
and then never asked any questions. It was just, and I think that experience is probably common for a lot of women. You're
yeah.
16, 17, go on this to help with your acne, go on this for whatever. And so I took a step back, started doing some research, and yeah, it turned into a book.
What would you say is the most surprising thing that you learned that maybe most people aren't aware of?
Quite a few things, but I would
Okay.
say the first one is that our reproductive hormones, estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, they're not just reproductive hormones. I had this misconception that it was all kind of fertility based, but these hormones touch on our bone health, cognition, our heart health, our libido, our mood, how we feel,
Yeah.
and not even how we feel, but how we regulate our emotions. For so many women, we feel off or we feel like something's wrong and we blame ourselves. Why can't I just get over it? Why can't I
Yeah.
just move past this? I'm just getting older. And sometimes, most times, there's a physiological reason behind that, but we're not educated.
And I think beyond that too, I feel like our society is so ignorant about these kinds of things. I listen to a lot of comedians. It's one of the things I do to fall asleep at night. And there's so many that are talking about when women have their period and how they become bitches and they're over emotional and all that stuff. And I just think, God, first of all, I was not like that. I'm sure there are women that have a lot of issues with hormones, and I assume it's an imbalance most likely that causes that type of problem. But yeah, I feel like there's a societal belief system that operates, and I'm 62, so definitely in the menopausal stage, and I don't feel like anybody prepared us for what that was like, and it's so different for each person.
Yeah, and I would say culturally, it starts at puberty.
Yes.
It starts from when we become girls into women. I don't want to speak for all sex education, but I know a lot of sex education is really, let's not get pregnant. And that's it. And back to why are reproductive hormones so important? What's actually happening in your body with our body changes, and what is your menstrual cycle, and what are the expectations when you're going through puberty? How should you feel or not feel? What's normal? What isn't normal? What requires additional medical attention? Then we become women of reproductive age. And for women that pursue having children, there is the fertility conversation, the struggles with that. No one explains pregnancy well.
Yeah.
And then postpartum, oh, forget it. And then perimenopause and menopause have these really impactful life changes. And for a lot of women, it's dismissed, it's ignored, and we're just supposed to accept these kind of negative feelings or trade-offs or side effects without any real explanation of what's happening. And I think if the more education that we have, the more we can acknowledge, hey, these are signs and symptoms of a potential imbalance. And that gives us solutions or opportunities to help ourselves that don't exist if you only say, oh, yeah, you're being a bitch because you're on your period. Or, yeah, there goes mom in her menopause, hot flashes. Like, it's not funny.
No, not.
Things that women have to experience, and we should be able to provide them.
And you know what else is fascinating to me is that, first of all, I don't think a lot of women realize that we also have testosterone. That's one
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
Secondly, men have their own kind of menopause symptoms, which I think are not discussed hardly at all. So I feel like just hormonal health across the spectrum is not well understood. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about what would you say are the biggest imbalances and symptoms and then solutions?
Yeah, that's really going to depend on the stage of life.
Okay. So for women who are not perimenopausal and menopausal, so the younger women.
Women of reproductive age.
Thank you. That's the
Yeah.
phrase.
So if they're on hormonal birth control or not, because that changes things as
Yeah.
well. I would say if you are someone that has irregular cycles, has painful, extremely heavy periods, has extreme bloating or terrible digestive issues, has fluctuating mood disorders like PMDD,
Does that stand for?
oh man, I'm spacing out. Premenstrual. My brain is not working right now.
That's all right. It'll come back to you. Don't
Sorry,
worry
it'll come
about it.
back. But it's like a more extreme version of PMS.
Oh,
Um,
very interesting.
PMOS, which just got changed from PCOS. I don't remember the full breakdown of the
Oh,
acronym either. Endometriosis, those are all signs and symptoms that there's something going off in your body.
yeah.
And it doesn't have to necessarily be related to your cycle health, but your menstrual cycle is a window into your health. And that's something that we're not taught.
Mm.
You're not supposed to feel all those things at such extremes, but we're not taught that. And then aside to that, going to sleep, waking up and being exhausted all day, not being hungry is
Oh,
a sign that if something is off. Don't be hungry. We should want to eat food. I'm just trying to think of other things. Yeah, just feeling untethered and not like
mhm,
yours. Those are all
mhm.
signs that something is off in your body.
And so you did this research largely because you were struggling with your own issues or because you heard a lot of your one-on-one clients were also struggling? Is that kind of what
Yeah.
got you into this?
Yeah. So working with, like I said, men and women, but specifically with women of all ages, menopausal, perimenopausal. I've even worked with some teens. Going back to they're having these symptoms and issues, and I don't have a good solution for them. I don't have, why am I still bloating every 3 weeks when I'm eating so healthy? Or why am I feeling so crazy? Why are all these things happening? So that's what really prompted me to want to get educated. And then, yeah, my own kind of journey with endometriosis and being on very different methods of hormonal birth control, I was like, whoa, I've had some of these symptoms and thought it was normal. So
Even on the birth control you had. Oh,
yes,
wow.
yes, especially on that. So
Are you saying it got worse actually being on the pill?
So my pain got a lot better,
Oh,
but then
okay.
it was kind of like flatlining and
Okay.
masking those symptoms.
Yeah.
But my emotional regulation, some of my digestive issues did not get better.
Okay.
I
And
assumed it was normal.
so what did you do personally to help yourself heal?
Once I started learning about this stuff, I was like, this is crazy. At the time, I was on a hormonal IUD, asked for it to be removed, got a lot of pushback from,
Really?
from my
Why?
gynecologist. Because of my endometriosis, they said, this is the only way you're going to feel better. So either you
Oh,
get on this or you can suffer. Those aren't the exact words. So had to be very assertive in getting it removed, which is not a pleasant experience. And then my progesterone was totally tank. So hormonal IUDs use synthetic progesterone called progestin. And for me, that meant I wasn't producing enough meaningful natural progesterone. So once I was off, it took me personally a little over 2 years to get my levels back to normal. And I really had to work on lifestyle factors. And I also worked with a functional medicine doctor.
I just want to highlight what you said because I think it's very important. Because you were on the hormonal IUD that had the synthetic form of progesterone, that triggered it so that your body didn't produce any or much, correct? Because it was
Yeah.
synthetic, right? And so 2 years. So what did you do to get those levels back up?
So I worked on my nutrition.
In what regard?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
was
So really looking at reducing inflammation, right? Making sure that removing alcohol was really important
Oh,
for me.
okay.
Checking where I might have been deficient in certain vitamins and minerals.
Okay.
So one potential side effect, this doesn't impact all women, but one potential side effect of hormonal birth control is nutrient deficiency, specifically B vitamins,
Oh, wow.
magnesium, zinc, selenium. And I ended up
Really?
finding out that I had issues with metabolizing certain B vitamins. And those are also linked to serotonin and dopamine production. So I was kind
Wow,
of
I didn't know that.
connecting the dots between mood, how I was feeling, and my inability to properly metabolize those nutrients. So yeah, so working with a functional medicine doctor to help with restoring my gut, it was a really complicated journey. And it
Mm.
doesn't have to be complicated for every woman. It was just I was on hormonal birth control for so long. And
And
then
you
also,
started out with the endometriosis, so there
yes.
was already an imbalance in your
Oh,
system.
yeah. And endometriosis is it's an inflammatory condition. We're still learning a lot about why that
Mm,
exists,
yeah,
but
and
absolutely,
especially for such a young person.
yeah. But inflammation in general, and I would say higher levels of estrogen aggravate the condition. So
Mm,
for me, getting my progesterone at a good level in balance with my estrogen, really working on anti-inflammatory nutrition and just stress management, good sleep,
mhm.
all made a huge difference.
So, did you do anything with magnesium levels? Because I know that's connected to sleep too.
Yeah, so I still take to this day, I do magnesium glycinate.
Yes,
That's
I've
what I
heard is the
take.
better one. Did you use any wild yam for progesterone by any chance?
I did not. No, that's a great question though. No, I just did some stuff. I don't remember the name of the supplements, unfortunately, for gut repair.
Okay.
Um, and then yeah, some B vitamin complex and then magnesium glycinate, which I still take today. And then just vitamin D, getting sunshine, that always helps.
Yeah, vitamin D and sunshine, you're absolutely right. And I think one thing I always like to say when that topic comes up is that you have to be in the sun for 15 to 20 minutes without sunscreen in order for that sun to start the process of your body creating its own D3. Interesting, because I've been talking to a lot of different doctors on this podcast, and one of the things we've talked about is vitamins, actually, or something that came up. I didn't really know much about them, but the other thing that's constantly coming up is this whole idea of gut health and how
Mm.
important our gut is to everything, our immune system, our brain, gut. It's intrinsically connected. Can you talk about that a little bit? What you learned?
Yeah, I'm by no means an expert in that particular area, but
I guess when you said you got your gut, so I know you said no alcohol. What are some of the dietary things that you changed to get your
yeah.
gut in balance?
So something to understand about progesterone is it definitely helps with smoothing our gut function. So for some women, when you have that imbalance, it can lead to things like bloating, diarrhea, constipation, because that smoothing process isn't happening as efficiently as it should be. And so for me, those are some of the disruptions I was having because of the lack of progesterone, but I needed to also support. Oh, I'm trying to remember if it was like glutathione or what
Oh,
it
I
was,
bet
but
that's really important too.
that was to help restore that lining, that
Yes.
barrier, because it is related.
And the other thing that I've noticed is we lose progesterone levels as we age, right? I think we probably decrease in a variety of different nutrient levels, but I remember progesterone is one of the things that, in fact, there's an Australian woman who talks about using wild yam cream, and she says actually for both men and women, which I thought was
Mm.
interesting. So I guess men lose progesterone as they age also.
Yeah, I don't know how that process works in men. How it
I don't
works
either.
for us during our reproductive years is we have those 4 phases of the cycle, right? So you have the follicular phase. That's
Right.
when the follicles are maturing. And while that process is happening, that's when estrogen rises.
Okay.
Then ovulation, the most mature follicle releases the egg, ruptures, and what's left over from that ruptured follicle is called the corpus luteum.
Mhm.
That is where progesterone happens.
Oh,
And so it begins to rise. It usually peaks around mid luteal phase, and its job is to help stabilize the uterine lining for implantation, to prepare the body for pregnancy. When it doesn't happen, both estrogen and progesterone fall. That uterine lining that was all built up during the follicular phase and luteal phase sheds, and then we have our period. So when you're not ovulating, there's no corpus luteum to then produce meaning levels of progesterone. As it relates to birth control, many forms of birth control, not all, but those that specifically use synthetic estrogen, like the pill, suppress ovulation. So
so it
then,
also suppresses the progesterone
because you're
creation.
not ovulating, right?
Yeah.
And so you are getting those synthetic versions, but they interact with the body differently than your endogenous estrogen and progesterone. So you tend to have lower levels of those natural hormones
Mm.
because what's basically happening is it's signaling to your brain and your ovaries that, oh no, we're good. We don't need to go through this cycle. We don't need to
Mm.
produce these things. And that's what prevents ovulation.
Yeah.
For progestin only methods, a lot of those are more for thinning the uterine lining and thickening cervical mucus, so making it very not habitable for the egg and sperm to
To
implant.
connect.
So you can still ovulate potentially,
Yeah.
and some women do, but you may find because the uterine lining is so thin that you don't have a period, or it's very irregular, it's very late. Yeah. So again, like no one explained any of that to me.
We've talked about some of the solutions that you've done. Are there any that you haven't mentioned yet that you think are important for people, for women in particular, and especially teens? I don't think I have a lot of
Yeah.
teens in my audience, but anybody that might have a teen as a
Yeah,
daughter.
for sure. From what we can control, which is all going to be those lifestyle factors, movement, getting sunshine, your nutrition, your stress management, and your sleep.
Mm.
Those foundational pieces always sound so simple, but I cannot emphasize what a difference that makes
And across the board, I
across
feel
the
like
board.
that is just the prescription for health.
It
Eating
truly
really
is.
clean, whole foods, stress management is key. And I think it's different for everybody. Some people love to meditate. I love going out for a walk in nature and planting in my garden and listening to really cool, different sort of healing music. But for some people, it's working out at the gym is a great
Yeah.
way of relieving stress. And yeah,
I wanted to add something that I did while I was going on that transition that I just thought of
yeah, sure.
was my stress management. I'm a very type A person. I'm very productive. I'm always go.
Yeah, me too.
And through that transition, I really had to reevaluate my priorities and reassess. And that required me reducing my load, having conversations with myself about pressure and perfectionism. That's not work that I can prescribe to other people. But again, when it comes to gut dysfunction and imbalances and cortisol and stress cannot be under,
Dismissed.
yeah, especially chronic stress.
Yeah, brutal.
I think that's something that a lot of women we sit with that we
Yeah.
don't even realize, just like that. What do I have next? What's going
Oh,
on?
yeah.
Brain can't rest. And I just really was like, whoa, man. You need to dial this in.
I know. I
I
feel
feel it.
like, especially I'm a mom, my daughter's grown and everything, but even just being a pet mom, our 19-year-old dog passed a few weeks ago,
I'm
and
sorry.
I can't believe that he lived as long as he did, which is pretty remarkable. But now that he's not with us, I realized how much of my energy and attention was focused on, does he need to go to the bathroom? Because he would have accidents at this older age. So I was like constantly trying to rush him outside or making sure he ate his food because his teeth were really bad. And did I have to puree? It was like having an infant in a lot of ways. And I don't think about how much, especially as moms, that we run the household on so many different levels. And then you add in if you have a job or your own business, your relationship with your partner. And I think even in this day and age, 2026, we still have a real imbalance for the most part in household load. Who does the cleaning and the cooking and the shopping and the pet care and the child care? And
Yeah.
whew, it's a lot.
And I would say for women in their 40s and 50s, potentially in their 60s as well, you might be managing children and elderly parents.
Yes,
So
that is a
now
big deal
you're
now.
in this capacity where your parents are aging, becoming more dependent, and that dynamic of your
Yeah.
relationship as a
Yeah.
caretaker. And then if you have young children, I'm an older mom. I have a toddler at 40.
Oh,
Then
wow.
it can change things. And there's
Yes.
that added pressure. And even if you're not a mom, to your point, career pressures and having partnerships and then what am I going to do? And yeah, a lot of women are constantly carrying that mental checklist all the time.
Exactly.
And we don't get a break.
No, not really, and I think it just becomes so normal that we maybe don't even think about it unless something happens and we're forced to deal with it.
Sure, an illness,
Yeah,
a
exactly.
breakdown in the middle of a Walmart, like things happen.
Oh,
Oh, no, not to me. No, I'm just saying,
if somebody were having that kind of a
yeah,
reaction,
yeah.
yeah. And for me, I knew from a young age that my hormones were somewhat imbalanced because I used to have fairly painful periods, and it took me a while to get pregnant, and I feel like part of it might have been stress. And then I ended up developing a uterine fibroid, and that was quite a journey. So I feel like there's a lot of different factors that can play into everybody's health and so many different things that we may not anticipate. So I want to get back to your original premise about birth control. What do people need to know about it that we haven't already discussed?
Yeah. So I want to make it really clear when it comes to hormonal birth control specifically.
Hormonal birth
So if
control,
you're
correct.
using barrier methods or
Totally different thing.
fertility,
Although, even with the diaphragm,
oh, diaphragm.
but so the diaphragm comes with that jelly that actually has spermicidal stuff in it. So I don't know if that has a whole lot of an effect or not, but I guess my point is that it's not completely without some type of synthetic chemical.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very good point. But the book doesn't actually talk about the barrier methods. It just mostly
Okay,
talks about
just
the
the
hormonal.
hormonal.
Yeah. Although I do mention the copper IUD as well, but mainly that understanding how they actually work, the various methods. Like I explained, there's some progestin only methods. There are combined synthetic estrogen and progestin only methods. Why some women feel fine on these methods and why some don't because of how it works, how our reproductive hormones affect systems, not just in our reproductive system. If you are experiencing those things, just considerations. So maybe that you do really poorly on the pill, so you go for hormonal IUD and you find that's better for you. Or you try a copper IUD and you find that's better for
Yeah.
you. Or you're like, I'm not doing any of this. I just want to do fertility awareness.
Yeah. So talk about what that means.
So just tracking your cycle.
Yep.
A lot of women may not know this, but you're only fertile in a very short window with
So 3 days.
12 to 24 hours for
Oh, wow.
ovulation. But the
Okay.
caveat here is sperm can live up to 5 days.
Oh,
So that's where that window opens up.
I see.
But yeah, when that egg is released, looking for sperm before it gets implanted, that's when you're actually fertile. So for women that have regular healthy cycles, you can just track when you ovulate. And I would do maybe a couple of days before and after because of how long sperm lives. But that's one method of doing it. But then the main thing with the book is that it's not about judgment. If you
Mhm.
decide that hormonal birth control is the best option for you,
Yep.
amazing. But you should go into it knowing what it's actually doing to your body. If those are trade-offs that you're comfortable with, do you have other options? And where does lifestyle fit into that? A
Mhm.
third of my book is about lifestyle, not just get sleep, But what is sleep? Sleep comes in cycles. Why is it important? Why
Yeah.
each cycle is important? How you can improve your sleep,
Yeah.
stress management. What are the actual physiological processes that are happening when you are chronically stressed? Nutrition. What the heck is a macronutrient, right? Why are carbohydrates and fats and proteins important? Why do I care? And some of the micronutrients that are really important for hormonal health. And then movement. Why do we care about strength training? Why do I need to do aerobic? Why are all those things important?
And weight bearing, that's something I hadn't really thought about a whole lot, but my mom is 91 and she's got fairly bad osteoporosis. And I thought, oh, wow, gosh, I didn't even think about, because I take walks and hikes and that sort of thing, but I do a lot of physical stuff that involves picking things up that are heavy, maybe. But I'm thinking maybe I should be carrying a couple of 3-pound weights as I walk up the road with my dog, just as a weight bearing kind of activity, because I understand that actually helps keep your bones strong.
Absolutely. But also, muscle is metabolically active, right? So when
Oh, that's true.
we think about just metabolism, how
Right.
efficient our body utilizes nutrients. So, especially menopausal women, it's important for every age to
Yes.
do resistance training, to have healthy bones and healthy muscles. But it becomes even more relevant as we age and the estrogen that we had, the progesterone, testosterone levels start to decline.
Right.
Those buffers that we had start to decline. So yeah, I'm a huge proponent of resistance training and kind of getting educated on it. But you also need to do aerobic training because
Yeah.
you got to work out your
Healthy.
heart
Yep.
healthy. Yeah.
Exactly. The sweat, because that's a great
Yeah.
detox pathway.
Yeah. And don't be afraid of a little intensity.
Yeah.
There are different benefits to strength training, cardio aerobic training, and high intensity, and they're all great. They're
Right.
all really good for you. The idea is that you should do your best to incorporate some form of all three into your training movement protocol.
Routines. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I want to highlight too that I've always thought about is any type of hormonal birth control. It may keep you from getting pregnant, but it's not going to protect from STDs. And I don't know if people think about that all the time.
Yes. That is a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you are having unprotected sex with partners that you don't know their sexual history,
And they
that's
haven't been
definitely,
tested recently.
and you
And
have not been, yeah, that's definitely a consideration for sure.
yeah,
We want to avoid any diseases.
for sure. Yeah. Because it seems like they're running rampant these days, as they have been for quite some time. What's the name of your book?
It's called the birth control illusion,
Okay.
claiming hormones, health, and your cycle.
Awesome.
So just the illusion being that take this, everything will be great. You don't have to ask any questions, and maybe everything will be great, but you should always ask questions, no matter what medication.
Absolutely. Agreed
Yeah.
there. Advocating for ourselves and particularly having somebody else come with us when we go to a doctor's appointment, I think is a really smart strategy because depending upon what you're going for, you may hear information that's upsetting. And so maybe part of you checks out and you need somebody there to hear the rest of the conversation. I found that to be the case with my daughter who had a pretty scary, life-threatening situation, which she survived, thankfully. But the patient advocacy piece, I think, is probably under recognized, the need for having people with us, especially if we have anything difficult going on. How can people reach you?
Yeah. So the book is available on all online platforms. So Amazon,
Amazon and
Barnes and
everything. Yeah.
Noble. I recorded the audiobook myself.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was fun. I have a YouTube channel called Tierra Duncan Author. I put out all kinds of just short 4 to 5 minute educational videos. I do interviews with
Oh, nice.
clinicians and other people in the space. My Instagram is also Tierra Duncan Author. You can catch up with me there. And then my website is tiaraduncan.com. So pretty easy.
Yeah, very easy. That was smart branding.
Yeah, I got lucky. They were all available. I'm just a big proponent and advocate for education, informed consent,
Yes,
judgment free, and trying to be as evidence based as possible. I'm not perfect, right?
but he is.
And the science is always evolving. But I just
Mhm.
want women to be able to walk into that doctor's appointment or make decisions about their body and their health, feeling empowered
Yes.
and informed.
And realizing that there is no one size fits all.
Ah, oh my gosh. Yes. I could go on about that all day. Absolutely. There is no one size fits all. And that's why learning about how your body functions is what's going to give you better insight.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wish I had?
No, this is a great conversation. I really
Cool.
appreciate you giving me the time to talk about my favorite subject.
Absolutely. Thank you for
Thank you.
educating us.